Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
So good to be together with you this evening to welcome this Shabbat, to pray together and sing together and to celebrate with Ava Silk and her family as she prepares to enter Jewish adulthood this weekend, this Shabbat. We are delighted that those of you who are here with us in the Barish Sanctuary are here to pray with us in person. We're also very happy that those of you who are joining us online at home or from wherever you are around the world that you are praying with us also this evening. I want to just offer a word of thanks to those of you that are here with us this evening for keeping your masks on during worship tonight so that we can do our best to keep our community safe these days. Those of you that are at home, now is a great time, if you haven't yet, to drop into the chat box on the live stream page, introduce yourself, say hello, maybe share some greetings of Shabbat Shalom or congratulations to Ava and her family. And so while you're all getting situated and sending some greetings of Shabbat Shalom in the chat, I want to invite Ava up to the bima, along with her parents, Jeff and Pam, to light candles. We will begin with tonight's candle lighting in our prayer books, starting with a meditation on page 3 and the blessing for these Shabbat candles on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel
Shabbat Shalom, Mazel Tov. We continue welcoming Shabbat with the words Lechu Neranena, come, let us sing. The words can be found on your screen. And we continue our welcoming of Shabbat with Lecha Dodi on page 20. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad, Yishmianu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shmo echad, V'shemo tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, Ki mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem hanesucha, Sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tchila. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Hitoreri, hitoreri, Ki ba'orech kumi hori, Uri uri shir daberi, Kevod Adonai alaych yigla. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. We rise and face the entrance as we welcome in Shabbat like a bride. And when you hear those words, Lecha Dodi, again, that is your cue to turn back around. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam besimcha u'b'tzola, Toch emunei hamsegula. Boi chala, boi chala. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela. Lecha Dodi, Ligrat Kala, Penei Shabbat, Nekavela.
Still standing, friends. We turn in our books now to page 28 for Baruch Hu, page 28.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, 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 yai lai 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 lai, We pray now gratitude for the evening, the light rolling into darkness with the words found on the screen. And if you have to move a little bit because you're just feeling it, that's okay. The light is fading, the night is waiting for you and me. Let's rearrange the stars. The mystery lies in the color of the skies when the words are on your lips that speak the evening into being. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. The sun's gone missing, the moon is whispering my name, but I have to listen close. The arc of its ascension commands my full attention. The sky provides a backdrop of purples and blues. Join me. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum. The light is fading, the night is waiting for you and me. Let's rearrange the stars. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari varavi.
On page 33, wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta can be found on page 36. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha ubechol nafshecha ubechol me'odecha ve'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
I want to share a brief excerpt, a poem by Adrienne Rich about freedom. She writes, "Freedom, it isn't just once to walk out under the Milky Way, feeling the rivers of light, the fields of dark. Freedom is daily, prose-bound, routine remembering, putting together inch by inch the starry worlds from all the lost collections." Our People's Song of Freedom, Mi Chamocha, is in our books on page 40.
now comes that time where we sing this prayer to celebrate the joy of Shabbat. We turn to Yismechu on page 44 at the bottom. Malchutcha, Shomerei Shabbat. Yismechu b'malchutcha, Shomerei Shabbat. Bekorei oneg, bekorei oneg. Yismechu b'malchutcha, Shomerei Shabbat. Mekadeshei, mekadeshei shevi.
We continue with the Amidah, which begins on page 46, and we invite Ava Silk to come up and lead us, and we invite all of you to please rise, page 46.
Adonai sefatai titach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor b'Hanara, Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Ve'konei Hakol, Ve'zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imao, U'mevi Geula Livnei B'neihem, Le'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Oter U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'elam Adonai, mechayei hakol atah rav le'oshia, mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem, mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, zomech noflim ve'rofei cholim, umat Matir Asirim, Umekayem Emunato, Lishene Afar, Michamocha Baal Givurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'amana Tala Chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechaye HaKol. Atah Kadosh, Shishnichat Kadosh, Ukadoshim B'chol Yom Yehallelu Selah. Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
Yasher Koach, thank you, Ava. You may be seated. We turn to page 57 and pray together in the middle of the page. You are with us in our prayer, our love, and our doubt, in our longing to feel your presence and do your will. You are the still, clear voice within us. Therefore, O God, when doubt troubles us, when anxiety makes us tremble, when pain clouds the mind, we look inward for the answer to our prayers. There may we find you, and there find courage, insight, and endurance. And let our worship bring us closer to one another, that all Israel and all who seek you may find new strength for your service. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otecha levadcha b'yirah na'avod. We continue now with a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav, page 60.
Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata hu melech adon lechol hashalom. We take a moment now for the prayer of our hearts. Oh, say shalom b'mramav. Say shalom aleinu.
we turn our prayerful attention now to those who are in need of healing. Healing of body and healing of spirit. Those in need of strength and those in need of a refuah shlema, a return to wholeness. We think of those with the pains and hurts that we know about, but also all those in our lives with the pains we may never know. We think of those who struggle with chronic illness, those who struggle with addiction, and those in recovery. In our community, we're praying for Sarah Astrich, Bradley Borden, Ethan Boriak, Melba Berman, Tao Costas, Richard Dana, Labe Ben-Zabe Finkelstein, Bart Fraley, Marcinus Goldman, Emily Goodfriend, Deborah Goodwin, Don Graubart, Patrick Hannon, Richard Jackson, Sarah James, Adam Kaplan, Lawrence Levy, Elton Lipnick, David Livitz, Christine Marcus, Todd Nelkin, Hattie Reese, Neil Reisman, Ken Silk, Edward Simmons, Marcia Tushita, Roger Williams, Yvonne Zines, Ariella Sharon Bat Yafa Shoshana, Daniel Zev Ben Zaharia Hakohen V'Miriam, Gelka Nechama Bat Leba Chaya, Leah Bat Shmuel V'Pesel, Leah Fruma, Schneidel Bat Rachel, and all who are suffering with afflictions of body, mind, or spirit, and those struggling with COVID-19. The words of our prayer for healing, Misha Berach, are found on page 253.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
A few announcements for this Shabbat. The Sisterhood will host a book review of the book The Third Daughter by Talia Karner on Thursday, January 13th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. Please RSVP online to receive that Zoom link. And also, we hope that you will make plans to join us in person or online for Shabbat next Friday night as we celebrate Shabbat Shirah, the Shabbat where we read the portion about the crossing of the Red Sea, a Shabbat that is always filled with song and music, which will be especially full of song and music as we celebrate Barbara Loser on the occasion of her retirement. That's next Friday, January 14th at 6 p.m. during Shabbat worship.
During difficult weeks when I'm feeling especially alone and isolated and feeling unsure about whether I am known or seen or recognized or understood by anybody, I can always take comfort and solace in the Instagram algorithm, which knows me better than anybody else. This week I got an ad in my feed from this algorithm that knows me so very well, and the ad was promoting a revolutionary new device which billed itself as the most effective tool ever for promoting spiritual wellness, mental acuity, emotional balance, and an enduring sense of tranquility and peace. Right. The endorsements under the picture brag about the fact that this amazing invention requires no harmful chemicals, no painful or strenuous physical activity, and no invasive bodily procedures. Obviously, I needed to learn more. And so when I clicked through to follow the link to this remarkable, life-changing device, I saw a photograph that I'll try to describe for you. The base of this device is a disc of wood, which I am assured is responsibly harvested from renewable forests. On top of the base is a sphere of glass, about this big, which is lit from within by an entrancing glow of colored light. There's a long white cable that comes out of the back of that wooden base, which can be plugged into the electrical outlet in your wall to power the illumination element tucked cleverly inside, which means that this revolutionary generator of miraculous peace and tranquility is a lamp. It's a lamp. But the glowing reviews on the site which sells this lamp assure us that it really does promote emotional wellness and spiritual insight. And the way it works is like this. You plug in the lamp, and when the globe lights up, you breathe in. When the light gets dim, you breathe out. And then you repeat that as many times as you need to achieve enlightenment. Now, I am very strategically not going to tell you the name of this product, nor am I going to share with you its exorbitant price, except to tell you that I am very upset that I was not the guy who patented the idea of a lamp that reminds you to breathe. Now, I'm being a little bit intentionally glib about the magic lamp that reminds you to breathe, but the idea behind it, that we can open a doorway into spiritual growth by promoting deliberateness in our daily patterns, by slowing down to remain conscious and mindful, that is very seriously and very truly in line with the disciplines of Jewish spirituality. The practice of striving to remain constantly aware, ever conscious of what we are doing and why, that, I can agree, sits at the core of a spiritually engaged existence. Now, in our portion this week, we read about the dramatic culmination of the 10 plagues, about the Israelites' hurried preparation for history's first Passover. An end is finally coming to the centuries of our ancestors' servitude in Egypt. The portion begins with a familiar scene that is repeated again and again in these early chapters in the book of Exodus. Moses and his brother Aaron approach the presence of Pharaoh and reiterate their demand. Shlach et ami, let my people go. Once more, Pharaoh refuses, now for the last time, as God unleashes the final 3 plagues, a swarm of locusts, a flood of impenetrable darkness, and the most terrible of them all, the death of the firstborn throughout Egypt. Only then, after this unthinkable havoc is set loose upon Pharaoh and his empire, does he finally relent, his spirit crushed, his pride obliterated, and at last the slaves walk free. The story of the 10 plagues is always one that invites hard conversation about the morality of justice, about the chosenness of the Jewish people, and about the character of God's ethics. Jewish thought has always preserved a measure of ambivalence and some discomfort about this story. It's woven into the text of the Passover Haggadah. It's grappled by the writings of the greatest Jewish philosophers and ethicists for centuries, the question remains, what is the right way for us to respond ethically to the suffering of the Egyptians under these plagues? Should we celebrate the fact that they suffered? Should we denounce their suffering? Should we shake our heads sadly but shrug and conclude that these were just regrettable but unavoidable examples of collateral damage in the campaign of Jewish liberation? Why did our freedom have to be brought about this way, through these terrible plagues? And why couldn't God have been satisfied with just one or two, let alone all 10? The traditional answer to that question is that God knew that the full set of 10 was going to need to be necessary in order to get Pharaoh to let the people go. Pharaoh was so tyrannical, so firmly set in his ways that even if blood or frogs would convince him to soften his policies temporarily, he'd quickly revert back to his old ways and press the Israelites back into servitude once more. And so the full complement, all 10 plagues, would be needed to once and for all convince Pharaoh to let them go. The problem with that argument, however, is that it appears clear in the text that the thing that finally broke Pharaoh's spirit isn't the cumulative effect of one plague after another in series. It's instead the massive, devastating power of the 10th plague, the death of the firstborn that finally eradicates his resistance and forces him to relent. And so, if that's true, if God knew that that would be true, why not just send that one plague? Why not begin and end with the slaying of the firstborn and avoid the terror and the destruction of the repeating plague after plague after plague that led up to it? Well, there's a clue earlier in the portion when God speaks to Moses and commands him to make that final trip to approach Pharaoh and ask him to set free the slaves. Go to Pharaoh, God says, so that you may retell your children and your children's children how I displayed my signs among the Egyptians, and so that you may know that I am the Lord. In other words, what's being described here is not a set of plagues designed to impress the Egyptians with God's power. This is not a set of plagues designed to change the Egyptians' minds. It's designed to change our minds. Plagues aren't for Egypt at all, but for us. The purpose of the plagues is to show us, once and for all, that God's presence suffuses all things, flowing through the world of nature and history, through the realms of power and influence. The story unfolds that way so that the Israelites will cultivate a new set of eyes, a new way of seeing the world, a new awareness of the holy transcendence that is woven throughout every fiber of reality. That's why the plagues came in a recurring series of traumatic impulses. If you'll forgive the comparison, it's like the slow flashes of that mindfulness lamp. With each slow pulse, each beat, a gentle nudging reminder to breathe in the Spirit and the promise of liberation. And it is really hard to walk through the world that way, to remain in full awareness of the holiness soaked through reality at each moment. That is a tall order indeed, to exist in the full bloom of expanded spiritual consciousness. I remember years ago reading about a psychology experiment that they did in Princeton in the 1960s, during those years when mindfulness practice and meditation were first making their way into American culture and American consciousness. Here's how the experiment worked. The researchers convened two separate groups of people and hooked them up to devices that would measure their perspiration and their breathing, their heart rate and blood pressure. The first group was the control group. This is a group of everyday people sitting in a room doing nothing special. And the second group was a gathering of Buddhists, of masters in Zen meditation. For both groups, they sat in their rooms quietly, and in each room, a bell would be rung at regular intervals, every 30 seconds or so. And the participants' responses to the bell were measured by the equipment worn on their skin. For that first group, the group of control participants, their bodies registered a very strong response to the first chime of the bell, slightly lower response to the second bell, and then as the series continued, one after the other, one bell following the next, their physical responses diminished slightly each time, until eventually, after a long series of chimes, their bodies registered no response at all. They'd become completely habituated and anticipated the chime of each bell, so they didn't react at all. The bell continued to ring, but so far as their bodies were concerned, it might as well have not been ringing at all. They had become totally attuned to expect the sound. Second group, however, that group of Zen Buddhist masters, registered the maximum possible response: complete shock, amazement, and radical awareness every time the bell rang, whether it was the first time or the 20th. They never allowed themselves to become habituated or anticipate the chime of the bell. The spiritual discipline that they had cultivated over years placed them in a permanent state of spiritual awareness, experiencing the world always in a mode of what Heschel called radical amazement. Every moment filled ecstatically with the glow of spiritual awareness and delight. Most of us move through our days like that first group of subjects. We don't always see the wonder and amazement of the world around us. We know that the birds are singing, but we don't pay any attention. We know that the light of the sun is slowly and gradually giving way to darkness and the glimmer of the stars, but we stop noticing them. We too become habituated and numb, and it's as if those miracles have ceased to exist. What God yearns for from us, we learn from our portion, is to find a way of walking through a world ablaze with holiness, with eyes that are open, commanded to break through our complacency and dullness. If we want to find a way of resolving the ethical crisis of the story about the 10 plagues, and especially about the repeated refrain of one act of suffering and trauma after another, we'll never resolve them by relating to some sort of relief that the Egyptians suffered, those who had enslaved us for so long. Instead, we can resolve the ethical dilemma by remembering the biblical commandment to tell our children and our children's children. That's the way that the legacy of the plagues is redeemed, and it is us who redeem it. Just before our ancestors walked free from slavery, they make a commitment to keep the story alive, not as a record of God's revenge, but as a blessing, a positive memory of what God wants for us: freedom and awareness. Each one of the 10 plagues, as they repeat, provide a reminder that we will pledge to tell our children in future generations, in the words that we'll say every year around a Passover table, every Shabbat when we remember our liberation from servitude, and every time we tell this story, transforming the story of our servitude into a reminder of the gift God gives to us. In that beautiful reversal, we remember that the point of the plagues isn't Pharaoh's humiliation or the destruction of Egypt. The point is the redemption of Israel, the liberation of our bodies and our spirits and our ability to see. That reminder is always ours to access, pulsing brightly like the light of that lamp, each year, each week, each time we sit with one another to promise to remember who we are, where we have come from, and what we resolve to see. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shalom.
We're going to move back into our books. If you'll join us, please, on the bottom half of page 282 for the words of Aleinu. We rise as the ark is opened.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'Adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 287. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא.
This is the time in our service now when we pause together to do the sacred work of memory. And so as we do, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones and those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We take just a moment now quietly to remember. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. On this Shabbat, the hearts of our congregation go out to the families of Sherman Markowitz and Robert Carlson, laid to rest in recent days. To their names, we add these, the names of those whose yahrzeits fall at this season. Together we remember Max Abrams, Reuben Askenaz, Fischel Askenaz, Sally Rose Boehm, Harvey Baum, Morris Bell, Bertha Bender, Grigory Bensman, Gersh Bensman, Michelle Bland, Max Block, Ben Blum, Gussie Bloom, Jerome Bormaster, Selma Bradspies, Alan S. Brooks, Bessie Brown, Marcia Masson Burke, Alfred Cantor, Irving Chandler, Marcia B. Cohen, Betty Cohen, Elizabeth Daly Cohen, Louis Colton, Simon Copland, Abraham Dipkin, Francis Bender Fagan, Harry Feldman, Leonard Huntley Freeman, Abraham Haskell Frosch, Jake Gates, Sandra Gershon, Celine Gerson, Fanny M. Gimbel, Robert Gold, Ben Goldstein, Frida Granoff, Pauline Greenberg, Bessie Greenfield, Harold Buddy Grogan, Rita D. Hassenfeld, Dr. Robert Ivanhauser, Lillian Hecht, Martin Hirsch, Esther Annette Lesky Hotchman, Abe Jacobs, Reuben Jaffe, Krishnamurti Jayaram, Samuel L. Joachim, Roselle Rosenthal Kahn, Sarah Kammerling, Elliot Kaplan, Sadie Kalmans-Krakauer, Evelyn Krantz, Emma Krautkopf, Thelma Jackie Paul LaValle, Eva Lesser, Dave Lewis, Irene Lutz, Pauline Love, Bertha Lusky, Fanny Molaski, Arthur S. Miller, Evelyn Monroe, Henry Nadelman, Marty Nathan, Isidore Parkins, Leonard Parvin, Esther Hirsch Perstein, Edna Winter Raffleson, Leonard Rauch, Gertrude Goldie Rocklin, Joan Rose, Doris Rosenbaum, Esther Rothman, Ms. Marjorie Rumsey, Fred Schaffner, Renee Krakauer Siegel, Rosalie Siegel, Stanley Silverman, Sam Skolnick, Zachary Strauss Slater, Joan Sloan, I. Paul Smolensky, Sonia B. Sobel, Sophie Sokolov, Joan Rush Spitz, Sam Spillane, Joan Stiegman, Lucille Grossman Stern, Eleanor Stern, Melvin Joseph Stolman, Max Swartz, Israel Teplitsky, Philip Travis, Hannah Vyokuk, Ruth Forkosh Waldman, Rachel Wilk, Eva Brand Wilkenfeld, Thekla Wittenberg, Ida Whiteley Wright, and Max Zweig. The memories of all of them are with us as we turn to page 294 and rise for the recitation of Kaddish, page 294. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemed kudsha barichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
Please be seated as we turn from Kaddish to Kiddush and invite up Ava and her brother JJ to lead us in Kiddush and Motzi. Kiddush can be found on page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, Ki hu yom tehila l'mikraye kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodecha, be'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat.
L'chaim. Another
And
motzi?
motzi?
Wait, don't leave.
JJ, you got more work to do. All right. It's real important. It's a real big challah you got to bless.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
Amen.
As JJ and Ava are fighting over that sizable challah, we are going to continue with our closing song. We return to Eileh Chamda Libi, which I think is going to reappear on these screens.
Friends, would you please rise for a moment of benediction? Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, our God and God of all those who came before us. As we go forth from this place, grant us these gifts: a heart that yearns for freedom, a soul that hungers for justice, and eyes open to behold your presence in this place and all places. Amen. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.